everyone. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Marley Samuels. I'm our Director of Donor Services and Programs, and I am joined today by my colleague, Sarah Ross. Sarah, you want to introduce yourself quick?
Didn't get to that unmute fast enough. Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Sarah Ross, Director of Community Grants and the Women's Fund here at the Community Foundation.
So Sarah and I have been working really hard, and we're so excited to share with you these changes to our community grants processes. We're going to start with a little bit of background information I'm going to provide to everyone, and then Sarah's gonna really inform you on what our next steps are here at the Community Foundation. So thanks for taking your lunch hour to share with us. So for those who have been here for a while, or you haven't been with your organization for a long time, the Community Foundation has been competitively grant making to the community for probably about 30 years. And it's looked different all 30 years and what those cycles looked like, how the foundation was able to respond to the needs in our community. The past, I would say about 5 years, we've been really intentional in hoping that our grant making processes were aligning with our organization, responding to community, working to be flexible with our organizations, grow trusting partnerships and what that might look like. And through lots and lots of conversations and important feedback that we've gotten from you, our partners, we've decided to take a step back and to really evaluate how we're grant making, what's going to be the most impactful to our community, and where we can meet our organizations where they're at. Through this process and through this growth, the foundation has grown substantially, which is where my focus is now really elevating our donor services and working with our stakeholders, which is why I'm really excited that Sarah is able to join us full-time and fully be the lead contact for our competitive grant making process. So I've led it for 6 years, and I'm just so excited to be able to work with Sarah to elevate her leadership in this area and also continue to bring the needs in our community to our key stakeholders. So now Sarah's going to start talking about, after those conversations have happened, we got feedback, we've had individualized conversations, and we recognized that it was the most important to have a full event to be able to hear from our organizations. Hopefully many of you were able to be a part of that. But what we wanted to do is we wanted to learn from you. We wanted to know what your challenges are. What would be a really great funding partner within our community? How can we meet you with what you're doing and elevate your services and your impact? Sarah, this is my transition into what we learned from that event.
Yeah, I've been able to see some really amazing in-depth research on trends that are happening across our country that Marley's been really investigating, being able to see the leadership from our community storyteller, Kai-Ying Vang, who is, he just offered us this pathway in order to have conversations with organizational partners and future organizational partners to understand how Community Foundation can become a better partner in the community and create bigger impact with y'all. I'm going to switch again to some visuals as we start going through what we learned. So in brief, and to provide a little bit of context, over about 9 months that Marley mentioned, there was a lot of conversations, interviews, gathering of data, analysis of that data, again, largely led by Kai-Ying. And we were able then to go through with Marley on some recommendations for how we're moving forward as a community foundation within our community grants program. So this is the kind of workflow that Kai-Ying led in order to go through this process of learning. We had a collection of data from multiple events, again, multiple tools, some really in-depth discussion and analysis of what those tools provided from a variety of different stakeholders, and then bringing that all together in a report that talks about what are sort of these major key findings within a lot of those discussions. And to sum up very quickly, in this beautiful report provided by Kaing, we have finding number one. So that we are, as an organization, aligned in this trust-based philanthropy. So what does that mean? So I'll just go through some tenets that I've been learning and engaged in within a national community of community foundations of what it means to be a trust-based in working in philanthropy. So first off, we're putting a lot of the ownership on ourselves to do the homework. We, as an organization, need to be understanding of what's happening in our community day to day, staying current with those issues, staying current with any barriers, staying current with trends. What are we able to celebrate with all of you? That there is a real interest, as many of y'all may know, for multi-year unrestricted funding. So to be able to maybe think about how we can be in that space to provide that type of support for our organizational partners. To simplify and streamline paperwork. I have been on the other side of grants where I've been the grant writer, and oftentimes the available monies don't really align with the epic amount of work putting into an application process that may not be very transparent, and we don't want to be a part of that story. So we want to provide a lot of transparency. We want to right side our application process, and when we want to be constantly in contact with y'all, with our community, within these processes, especially now as we are revising our community grants program. Transparent and responsive. Again, I think that goes to doing the homework, knowing the community, knowing our organizations, and knowing how we can best serve. Solicit and act on feedback. That's a big thing that I think kind of encompasses this whole process, that we're really committed to being that better partner. And so it takes a lot of work. I mean, this was over a course of 9 months, 10, 12 months, really to gather all of this information and to be active listeners and respond accordingly to all of the time and conversation that y'all provided. And then finally, offer support beyond grant check. And that's, as Marley alluded, I'll continue to be working really closely with her and the rest of my colleagues at the Community Foundation, not only to grow our grant making and to continually improve our processes, but to find those partnerships, to see what issues you might be having or challenges that you might be having that we can kind of step in and walk beside you with some of those things. Our second finding is we're happy to know that we have impact, but we can do more. We can do more. And so what is that more? Making larger commitments that deepen the impact, growing our grant making, funding for innovation, really being able to put the questions back out into the community as to what are those new ideas? How can we improve processes? How can we create bigger impact together? Creating bridges to other funding sources. So being the experts in the community, how can we use that expertise in order to continue to build up connections, partnerships, et cetera, and that we can learn and grow together. And finding number 3, grant-making processes should be better attuned to the needs of the social sector. And I think I've touched on a lot of these things already in the first 2 findings, but we can do this by increasing our grant-making transparency, and that is not only in our process, but also in how we're continuing our communication with our organizational partners, provide longer-term financial commitments, continue responsive grant making. So to be able to shift, to pivot, to understand that this is where there's great need. And so to be able to shift with y'all to provide support, to make funding flexible, totally understand, especially when you're thinking about some new projects, that there has to be space for that innovation, right? And that means time and space for iteration. To be able to learn within the process and pivot as needed in order to create that impact. right size application and reporting requirements, kind of talk through that a little bit. And once again, to continue to share knowledge amongst all of us, to continue to share those stories in order to really build community. So I just want a quick pause here. I'm about to go into what our new community grants process cycles look like, but just wanted to pause real briefly if there were any questions on the how we got here. If there are, just unmute. Drum roll, please. Here we go. Let me get back to my visuals here. Okay, so maybe almost all of you on this call have participated in our community grants program. And if you haven't, I'm so glad that you're here. But if you have before, I want you to, let's all just appreciate what that process looked like. Let's celebrate it, and then let's forget about it, because we're gonna move forward with these 3 cycles. And some of them may look very familiar to what you have seen in the past, but I think it's gonna be more efficient for all of us to kind of think of this as a new community grants program within the Community Foundation, so that we know that we're going in as learners, that we know we can go in with all the questions. No one's behind, everybody's starting at the same place, and we'll move through it together. We will continue to have 3 grant cycles annually. And I'm going to step through each of those, but there are some commonalities between our 3 grant cycles that I want to hit on. And that is that all 3 are competitive. So there is an application process for all 3 cycles, and they are open to nonprofit and charitable organizations who support emerging needs in Portage and Waushara counties, and that also align with the Community Foundation of Central Wisconsin's values and our 5 mission areas. Those mission areas, you may be familiar, those have not changed. Our mission areas are arts and culture, education, environment, helping people, and wellness. So you can think of these mission areas exactly as it says, as the mission of the community grants. These are the areas that Community Grants Program is committed to support. So any application that comes in for any of the grant cycles should be under the umbrella of at least one of these mission areas. And you'll be defining that in your application. What mission area does your project, program, et cetera, fall under? And they should also align with our Community Foundation of Central Wisconsin values of compassion, commitment, and connection. And I think coming from our nonprofit and charitable organizations, we share that. So I don't think that's going to be a hard requirement to follow. Organizations can submit 1 application per cycle per year. So you have 3 opportunities in 1 year to apply, but you can only put in 1 application per cycle. So that's, you can put in an application for a partner cycle, you can put in an application for a major project cycle, you can put in an application for a visionary cycle, all in 1 year. All right? So let's get into the individual cycles. So if we look at the start of the calendar year, our first cycle is the partner cycle. Applications are open January 1 through 31. This opportunity awards up to $5,000, and its purpose is for one-time needs requests from nonprofit or charitable organizations. So we're looking at proposals in our application for project specific, that you need a thing that's going to make your process more efficient. Maybe it's a dishwasher, you have a kitchen, and we want to expand our ability to serve more, or to serve more folks quickly, and a new dishwasher is going to be able to make that happen. I don't know that you can get a commercial dishwasher for $5,000, but that would be something to look into, right? So these are one-time project-specific proposals. These applications cannot exceed more than $5,000 per grant cycle. So anything Up to $5,000, we're happy to take a look at. And there's only one application per organization per cycle. So you might have, which I'm sure y'all do, 3, 4, 5 projects that may all want to be funded within this dollar amount. Prioritize, pick the one that you think will have the most impact for your organization, and that's the application you'll submit. We have a really incredible grants committee that takes a look at these applications after I do a first look to make sure that that you're meeting all the requirements. And then that committee gets a hold of the applications with a decision about the awards winners announced mid-March. Okay. So what's available? So this may fluctuate a little bit, but we're going to make sure to keep y'all attuned to our current numbers. And we do that on our website. I am always happy to hop on a Zoom, a phone call, an email in order to talk to you about what's available in any given cycle. As we're looking into January next year, January 2025, I can tell you that we have around $75,000 in available grant monies for Portage County and around $35,000 for available grant monies for Waushara County for this cycle here. We do have some reporting. So there is an annual check-in that is a process through our grants management portal. So it's the same portal that you're putting in your applications in. But also, I just have an opportunity, I realize, to continue to learn from y'all. So I'm really eager to be able to go out and do check-ins as appropriate at your organization or to wherever the site is where the project being supported is. And I'd love to talk with you, to talk with volunteers, staff, folks being served in order to create a whole story there that we can tell to the greater community. So that's our partner cycle. Our next cycle within the calendar year is our major project cycle. So applications are open May 15 through June 15. What does that mean? That means we're in the cycle right now. So we have this open until Friday. So if you have a draft in, if you've been thinking, gosh, I do have this project that meets these requirements that might be eligible for this. And so I should be thinking about turning around an application and get that in by Friday so that we can take a look at it. So this is open right now, but it is an annual cycle. So you'll see it again next year, opening in May. And this is our larger grant cycle. So this is going to award between $25,000 and $50,000. This is still, like the partner cycle, a one-time request, but major. And so we're looking for those projects from nonprofit and charitable groups that is supporting a unique community program, project, or capital campaign. So in the past, some of the major project winners have been Lake Pacua, Accessible Playground, the Amita Center over at Midstate, and then this past 2023 was the Create Portage County and Farm Shed, their transition over into the Grove at the old convent. Applications for this cannot exceed $50,000, and any amount that's requested up to $50,000 must be less than 50% of the total project budget. So we're making sure that within that, we're seeing some good fundraising or other organizational partners to be able to work with you to get that project fully funded. And we have a decision for the major projects announced mid-September. There is one of these awards granted annually, so it's very competitive. With all of our cycles, I'm ready at any point before applications are open or during, to answer questions and to make sure that you are continuing to meet the requirements, so that your application is approved and will go on to the committee as a proposal. So reporting for this is quarterly. It's a large project. And so we, as a partner, we really want to be able to celebrate you as you're working through this project, and also hear about any challenges that you may be facing. How we can come in and maybe create some other connections, or just walk beside you with this really exciting project. Again, I'm really eager to be able to meet with folks one-on-one, face-to-face, at the site with a group. But I also want to make sure that we're being respectful of folks' time. So there is a way to sort of have a check-in through our grants management portal. All right. So that's 2 of the 3. I want to pause again for any questions.
Hi, Sarah. There's a question from the chat. Are you able to share this PowerPoint?
Oh, yes. So for folks who might be new to Community Lunch Hour, Kaying does a really amazing job of wrapping all of this up. So we will share the PowerPoint. She always provides a blog and other information resources so that we can kind of close the circle on this. And then at the end, I'll have my contact information up, so ready to talk with you whenever. Thanks for the question.
I think I would also add, all of the information Sarah is sharing is up on our website already. And we will keep updating that with more details. So if you want to share with colleagues, that's probably the most up-to-date place to look.
Absolutely. Thanks, Marley. Okay, we have one more cycle to go. Okay, you asked for it, we listened, and there was a whole lot of legwork in order to figure this out. So I just really want to once again make some hands for Marley in doing a lot of this great research to figure out how Community Foundation of Central Wisconsin can offer multi-year grants. It's here, it's happening. So this is our first year. Applications will open this year, 2024. September 1, and will remain open October 31st. So we have 2 months there. I really applaud making that timeline expanded so that we can have a really thorough process where we can get a lot of questions answered, especially in this first year. So this multi-year grant cycle, which is called the Visionary Cycle, awards up to $15,000 in the first year. But we are committed to multi-year granting. So we will continue to fund this project up to 5 years. And each subsequent year after that first year, funding will taper 20%. Why are we doing that? Well, the expectation is that these are for projects where you are coming in with innovation, with new ideas, with that tickle in your brain of like, if only I had time, or if only I had a little bit of financial support, I'd love to launch this thing so that we can grow, so that we can maybe add a part-time staff member. Maybe there is a new program that you have just really been wanting to get off of the ground. Maybe this is an opportunity that we can partner with you and make that happen. So the expectation is that after the life of the grant, whether it's 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, up to 5 years, you will be able to move this idea into your organizational budget. So a lot of if you're thinking about projects that certainly are not so much one-time costs, expenses, but that's something that's going to come up in your operations budget, this is maybe a path to look at. So like I said, it awards up to $15,000 in that first year, and the Community Foundation is committed to funding that at 100% of the request up to $15,000. and that will continue to fund that with a 20% taper each year for up to 5 years. So what's available? In this first year, we will have 10 grants available for organizations that serve Portage County, that are in Portage County, serve Portage County, and 3 grants, up to 3 grants in Waushara County. And in subsequent years, so in year 2, we will continue to be funding these projects, the 10 and the 3. But then we'll be looking for 4 new projects in Portage and 1 new project in Waushara. So it's really exciting that we'll have this sort of consistent relationship with folks over the course of this grant lifecycle to bring in these ideas. So we really value, again, all of the time and the knowledge that the community has shared with us in terms of the needs out there. We were challenged by a lot of that information and took it to heart in order to be where then we could develop this idea. And now we want to really challenge our community to think innovatively. So maybe what are those projects that year after year after year, you sort of had this consistent funding from community foundation or other sources? How are we sort of looking at that and changing the paradigm so that you're not looking for that consistent funding, but we can offer we can offer support that's more impactful, so it's self-sustaining, that it becomes a part of the operations budget. So that's the purpose of this. There will be an annual check-in through our grants management portal, and I think in this instance, it's more important that I be able to come out and meet with y'all and see what's going on throughout the life of the grant. I think we early on in this presentation talked a little bit about needing that space for some flexible funding. And so if we're in a committed relationship for a few years with this grant, as partners, we really want to understand, where did you need to pivot? What are we learning that maybe we just need to shift a little bit because we see an avenue where there's going to be greater impact? And we're ready to work alongside y'all as this is happening. So we're really, really excited about this cycle, that it's starting to hit a lot of the needs that we need in our community. But we also understand it's going to come with a lot of questions, especially in this first year, and really excited to meet with y'all and make sure that everybody is feeling confident as we go into the application process. The interesting thing about this is that the application, which will be on our grants management portal, will actually start off with a really brief pre-application. And that'll serve as like a letter of intent. So there'll be like 3 questions that kind of get to the meat of your project or program, to make sure that it is in line with the purpose of this visionary cycle and that it does meet those requirements. I'll have immediate conversations with y'all once those that LOI is basically submitted. And then if we're squared away and that's approved, then you'll be able to move to the usual, the full application, so that we're getting all of that, all of those details. So we're going to spend the rest of the time talking about these grants and getting your questions in. I am excited to be doing this with Marley because this is also a great learning opportunity for me as I have transitioned into this role. But I will be your main point of contact. So anything that is coming up for you with partners, with major projects, with Visionary Cycle, or if you're just thinking about how the Community Foundation can be a supportive partner in other ways, please make sure to contact me, and all of this information can be found on the website. Additionally, I just wanted to show y'all these dates down here. There will be a couple of open houses. And so July 9th from 3:30 p.m. to 5 p.m. at the Community Foundation. So we're located at the Commons Nonprofit Center in the atrium. I'll be there. I'll have some treats. Let's just chat. Let's get your questions answered so that you're ready for the Visionary Cycle in the fall. I'll also be there July 10th, 9 a.m. to 10:30. You don't need to make an appointment. If you want to let me know you're stopping by, that's great. But I'll be in the atrium, which is at the room with all of the windows at the old Delta Dental building. I'll be there ready to have a conversation with you.
Sarah, a question.
Yes.
I'm wondering what do you anticipate the grant cycle to be on the visionary grants? Will that be a calendar year from like starting in January through the end of December is 1 year? Or what is the plan for when those awards would come out?
Sure. Yeah, Marley, can you take that question?
Sure. So I saw another question in the chat, so this might answer both, but the applications are open from September 1st to October 31st, and then decision is made in mid-December. So you can anticipate that the start of the grant, we wanted to align it with the calendar year for your ease of budget planning, and so that you know that the dollars are coming in. So yes, the 5 years will be from that January, and then probably in the fall, late fall is when Sarah is going to be connecting in, having those meetings with you. One thing that is so important, as Sarah and I have been talking, is that relationship piece and understanding that we're asking for innovative ideas, new ideas, and sometimes that means that things don't work or that you need to change, or you've learned after 2 years, after 1 year, and you need to do it differently this way. And that's all within working that conversation with Sarah. The back and forth, our goal is to advance your organization, not to take money back. So how can we be a good partner in that way and use Sarah as a resource to advance your efforts?
Thanks for the questions. Those were great. What else? What else is on your minds? Can I clear up some confusion? Anybody have any what ifs?
Sarah, we have a question from the chat from Christy. With the visionary cycle, would an organization be able to apply in the future if awarded, or is it one-time only application?
So if if you are awarded and within the life cycle of your grant, you would not apply. However, if you're not in the life cycle of that visionary grant, you didn't win that round that year, or you have, but that's been in the past, you can apply. Yeah. We're looking, it's making sure though that we're trying to help organizations pull that idea into their operations budget. So we wouldn't want to see maybe the same project extending after that 5 years with the kind of relationship that we have and that financial support. But instead, if there is another project that maybe is alongside that and there's some more impact that can happen there, then certainly we would welcome that application.
There's another question in the chat, Sarah. Do I have to apply for $15,000 if my visionary project doesn't require that level of funding?
Nope, it's up to $15,000. So we could adjust accordingly within the plan. And it doesn't have to be 5 years either. Maybe you have a vision in your timeline to be able to build that new program, that new idea into your operations budget within 3 years. So we want to be as flexible as possible in order to serve you best. I finally got the chat open so I can stay on top here. What else?
Looks like we just got something from Monica. If an organization is in the period of a 5-year award, is the organization eligible to apply to the 2 other grant cycles?
Yeah, I just went over this with Marley. Can you explain, please?
Sure. Yes. Yeah, you can still apply for the partners and the major projects. There's no limitation between the cycles if you're working towards visionary, because they're such different purposes. The visionary is operational and it's long-term change for your organization. And our partners and our major projects are for those one time, sometimes the larger, a capital campaign. You're building a new building, you're renovating, or like Sarah said, you need a new dishwasher or an AED for your building. I see there's a few familiar faces on the chat, so I can use that example. But those one-time needs are still going to happen, even if you're doing those long-term operational improvements. So you are eligible to apply for the others. Yep.
I have a question just about the partner cycle grants. So we have applied for grants before in the past. The only thing that I can see that would be changing is the timing, that instead of applying in the summer and finding out in September, now you'd be applying in January and finding out in March. Will the grant proposal be changing as well? The questions and the formatting of the proposal itself, is that going to change? And is that something that we can access and look at ahead of time?
I don't know that. Marley?
Yep, I can take that one. So yes, it will be changing. Sarah shared a very brief overview of everything we've learned, and we learned so many detailed pieces. And one of the things is that reporting applications, everything should be streamlined. And so we want to be, we've said this a few times, and so I can't reiterate it enough, but we want to be a good partner. So when we think of what the application is going to look like, it's going to be very pointed questions. We're only going to use information that we need. So you won't see extensive financial information or extensive questions. We want to understand what you're asking for and why it's going to improve your organization. But Sarah also talked about that LOI process. And these are big changes. Every cycle has individual eligibility. So that's why we're going to have that brief LOI so that we're not wasting your time filling out an application that your project isn't eligible for. So that's really the purpose of that, is so that you're using your time the best way possible. And we also realize that things are complicated and very detailed. So you won't have access to the application ahead of time, but we are committed to making it a very streamlined application for us to get the information and for it not to take too much of your time as well.
But obviously that partner cycle is something that it's a popular cycle that and it's very familiar, both in that January and then what used to be in that late, I guess fall slot. So we want to make sure that we still have that kind of support for those one-time projects. Anybody else thinking about maybe some innovative ideas, thinking about new processes or anything, and kind of talk through that a little bit?
I've got a question for you.
Sure.
So under the visionary cycle, and this would pertain to the idea of enhancing existing services. What if you're not necessarily enhancing, you're just maintaining existing services? So it's not necessarily a visionary idea, but just we want to keep doing what we're doing over the next 5 years.
Yeah. I think that is a common need in order to be able to feel like you have that sort of consistent support. And I appreciate that need, but I think with the visionary cycle, as we have designed it now, we want to make sure that we have space for those ideas. So what I would say is you are maintaining a process, but maybe we're thinking about it in a different way, to where at the end of, if this is something that we partnered with you, at the end of that grant cycle, you've been able to have this, you're now in a position where you don't need that maintenance in terms of that funding, that there's been a way, a process, a new system that you've been able to tap into during the life cycle of the grant, so that that maintenance is now absorbed in your operational costs. It's not something that it may feel a little uncomfortable, because I think, we want to make sure that we are year to year supporting needs in our service area from our community partners, all of our awesome nonprofits and charitable organizations. But at the same time, ensuring that this can lead to greater sustainability within the organization, so that they can continue to make a really significant impact in our community. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, great. Great question. I have a feeling that
Can
that's going to be a conversation I continue to have as we're talking about this new idea. I'm so sorry, I cut somebody off.
No, that's okay. I just wanted to ask a question bouncing off of that one.
Sure.
So if an organization needed, more of that maintenance type of funding, would the partner cycle be more fitting, because it's a yearly application? It's for, that one specific project each year. And I guess if I'm understanding it, the partner cycle feels more similar to like the old application process, if I'm interpreting that correctly.
Sure. Yeah, I think you are, and I want to offer this challenge that we're very proud to be able to work with organizational partners in the past, where there has been more of that year to year, a little bit more consistent giving. And we have felt that was important. And now we're looking for ways that we can build up connections and that support, so that our nonprofit orgs aren't year after year kind of having to ask for that same ask. So even in the partner cycle, it will look very familiar. I would say the difference that we're seeing now with the partner cycle is that we want to try and keep that at a one-time ask, rather than looking at this sort of consistent funding year after year after year up to $5,000. Maybe how we can think about these new opportunities together in this new community grants process is, what have I been looking for year after year after year in order to maintain? And are there ideas that my group, my cohort, my people, volunteers, whatever may have, so that we can shift this year to year support into, okay, let's figure out this plan and apply for a visionary grant to move some of these ideas into the operations budget. I know it might be kind of this lofty idea in the moment, but where we haven't had, I think, enough support, especially from the feedback we've been given, is just the space for our nonprofits to be able to think about how they can sort of reorganize or reframe their processes in a way that they will be able to sustain and continue to have significant impact.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I think one thing to add to what Sarah was saying is that we're starting over. So if you've applied for an application previously and you think that you're going to need some time, and partners really makes the most sense for your application, well, for a one-time project, but you're going to start moving into operations that are going to advance those maybe next year, or whatever that might look like. We're starting with a clean slate, and that might be helpful for you to think about. Do you see the question in the chat, Sarah?
Oh, yes, I do now. Okay, so we have a question here. Can you recommend resources or individuals who can review an organization's grant application? When we are so close to the projects, helps to have objective eye looking at it. Thanks. Oh, I love this comment. Can you respond, Marley?
Sure, I can respond. So something very I can appreciate, and I'm so excited that Sarah also appreciates is that our community foundation staff don't make the decision for grant funding. We simply facilitate community members making that decision. So if there are, we've done this before, and so this is kind of a call out for everyone as a reminder, but if there's a specific question in an application that might be helpful for Sarah to look over, see if Sarah has questions about it. Am I missing something? Does something not quite make sense? We are more than happy to do that. The full application, just because there are so many applications that are going to come in before the deadline, isn't something, but if there's specific things on your application you want Sarah to look at to see if there's any questions or if everything makes sense, she's more than happy to do that.
I think for all of our cycles, it really is that question of impact in our service area. And I think that the definition of impact is also something that our folks who are applying for these grants can also help us really understand as well, because we appreciate numbers, anything that's coming in that this data that we can kind of crunch and understand is wonderful, but also just from someone who has a background in storytelling, to be able to just understand what that impact means to the folks that you are serving and to your organization. That's the thing that we really want to make sure is very clear in the application for our community members. So if they have a really good handle on the project or the program, what that impact is going to have, or your organization as a whole has in our community, that's what we want to see on any of those applications for sure. Good question.
And I'll just add, as a person who likes to Google, if you Google fundraising consultant in Stevens Point, Portage County, Waushara, or even in Wausau, there are a few different options, and that might be a source that you might be interested in if you don't have fundraising staff on your team already.
Thank you, Kai-Ying. If there are any other comments or questions, can y'all have any ideas that we want to share with the group while we're all gathered here? We have just a few more minutes together.
One thing Sarah and I have been working on that I wanted to make sure everybody was aware of is our expanded commitment to making sure that we help you make these projects successful. So with the expectation that Sarah talked about, that Visionary will be permanent changes that'll help your operational budget or your structure, there's different channels that we are working on in ways that we can get your project out to our stakeholders, our donors, our who we have the attention of within our communities. So just something to keep in the back of your mind, that we don't have these expectations without also helping you move forward in that way. But Sarah and I are going to work hard on, helping get the word out that you're improving and you have these great ideas, and this is how it's going to better serve our community.
Yeah, I'm particularly excited for the grantees in this first year, because then we'll be able to have kind of that model, these stories to be able to share with the community. I think that those folks are going to be a big help in seeing how this multi-year grant cycle is creating a lot of good change and is creating good impact in our service area. As I said, Kai-Ying is just amazing at making sure this all gets wrapped up in a post-Zoom package, so that you'll have all of these resources in one place, including the recording, including the slide deck. And that also will be a lot of that information. It will be is actually available on our website in terms of the 3 different grant cycles, but also this conversation we'll have available on our website as well. if there aren't any other questions, we can move on to what's happening next, Kaying.
Yeah, so let me go ahead and share a link, and I would invite folks to fill out our survey here regarding this community lunch hour and how you're taking this experience so that we can continue listening and learning from you. And then the next thing that I would like to share is our upcoming community lunch hour. All right, which will be happening. Uh-oh, can you guys see? All right, I'm having some trouble sharing this, sorry. Okay, share lunch hour. Okay, do you
There it
see?
is.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. Yes, in July. And Sarah, can you tell us more about this community lunch hour?
I'm so excited for this one as well. I was pretty excited for this community lunch hour. I am excited about all the community lunch hours. So you're going to get me again as someone who's going to host these amazing folks. We're going to talk more about some stories of with women in athletics within our own Portage County, and the exhibit that's currently up over at Heritage Park at the with the Portage County Historical Society. This team of folks who have curated this exhibit, it's really outstanding. If you haven't gone, run to it. It's wonderful. It'll be open through the summer, and they have a book. So the book is imminent. Last I heard, maybe like a couple days ago, it might be finished printing, but it's looking at the history of women in athletics in Portage County, especially from a Title IX point of view. So Sheila Meach will be joining me from Florida. She's got some amazing stories as a trailblazing athlete and coach in this area. Sue Kale's gonna partner with me on this, as she has been for months now, with all of her expertise in this area. And then, of course, our beloved John Harry, who's the executive director of Portage County Historical Society, will tell us a little bit more of what to expect after that exhibit closes. They've got some really great things coming up at Heritage Park.